I do enjoy listening to you idiots.
Arsenal win back possession, and it's broken nicely to Cazorla. 30 metres from goal, plays it to the edge of the area. Alexis Sanchez goes for goal and scores. That's a brilliant goal from Alexis Sanchez. He's been Arsenal's star man this season, and maybe now they're going to get the right.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Gooners in the USA, the Interlull podcast. Last week, Mike was the man meat of the sandwich between two Andrews. Today, I'm the man meat between two Michaels. Boys, how the hell are you?
So sexy. So sexy. Andy, I'm wonderful. Clean sheet for the Arsenal this weekend. Absolutely no goals allowed, which is always nice.
Yeah, nice stress-free weekend.
Yeah, I'll introduce the other Michael in just a minute, but I'm loving life in London today. I know it's like 8 a.m. your time, so you're half asleep, but I've been up all day and just having a good time over here. I do love it here, except for my Chinese food experience that I've been tweeting about for the last couple hours today on Gerrard Street. Remind me never to do that again. But yeah, it's gonna be a good time over here. And we have a guest today.
We do.
We have Michael Chrisman from the Short Fuse, which is is it Chrisman? Did I pronounce that right, or is it Christman?
No, there's no T. It's just Chrisman.
Okay, we don't want to make you out to be more important than you are, like the Holy One. But the Short Fuse, Michael, is, if I'm not mistaken, the Arsenal blog and content portion of SB Nation, which is a very popular website. Is that right?
Yes, that is 100% correct.
Awesome. I've done my research. So tell us a little bit about the Short Fuse, how long you've been there, kind of what it's all about.
So Short Fuse is the Arsenal branch of SB Nation, which if you follow pretty much any fan website in the United States, that's probably the biggest content holder of it all. I've been around since, I guess, last November 2016, so not too long. The website itself's been around since, I think, 2011. So pretty much any content, fan articles, fan shots, tactical analysts, anything like that. If you're just looking for something to read on daily content, we'll probably get 5 to 6 things up a day and just we like it for our Arsenal fandom, but we try to help everybody else with theirs too if they just can't get enough of it to come check out our website. So
yeah,
that's pretty much.
I mean, you got content like, your whole office being locked into the office on Friday, absolutely. Which compelling kind of journalism that as well as top Arsenal stories and stuff. What happened there, by the way?
We actually lost. I don't think you're losing when you do charity, but we had a charity contest with the Tottenham Hotspur website, and they beat us, and so they got our website for an entire day. And to be completely honest, it was hilarious. I mean, some of the stuff that they posted, I was dying. So I can't wait for us to have another charity event. That way we can beat them, because I've got things up in my head that I'm like, okay, we've got to get this posted about them. But some of the stuff they posted was just A+. I mean, we were all dying. And then the only thing we had control over was our Twitter feed. And we acted like we were locked in an office and had been drugged with some lasagna one morning or one night, and it knocked us out, and we didn't know what was going on. So we played along as best we could and tried to be good sports about it, and we just had fun with it overall. So, and we raised like $6,000, so I don't think anybody lost that day.
Well, the raising money for charity, like you said, is never a loss. But I mean, let's not lose to Tottenham people again, okay? Can we arrange that?
Okay.
I did like their article, teams that have made the Champions League quarterfinals ahead of Arsenal. I mean, there are some really shitty teams on here.
Boy,
they posted one banner that I was like, now you've taken it too far, and it was like Autumn and Humber are to be photographed in Spurs shirts. And I was like, okay, now you guys have crossed the line.
I'm not convinced that Humber doesn't wear a Spurs shirt constantly anyway. I mean, that fucking dog, I'm telling you, he's going to be the death of our squad. But that's for another podcast, my hated dog and you. I love dogs. I just don't like that one.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're going to start this pod off, Andy?
Yeah, let's do it. So with it being a non-Arsenal weekend, I'm going to start off with a non-Arsenal question. So if you boys could attend a sporting event, so this would be like the bucket list of sporting events for you, What sporting event would it be? What game would it be? What team would it include? I'll go to Michael first.
All right. I think mine would be, I don't know if it would be a game, but it would be an event. And I would like to go to the Winter Olympics.
Nice. Any particular sport that you'd want to see?
Yeah, well, that's what I was about to say.
Obviously, ice dancing, I'm sure.
Yes.
Synchronized ice skating.
It'd either be the Winter Olympics or Winter X Games, but I am big into snowboarding, so I would probably go to either the half pipe or to the I can't even think of the name of the event, the freestyle. I would like to see that for sure.
Back when I was a kid, there was no snowboarding and half pipe in the Winter Olympics. It was all just speed skating and hockey. So these newfangled events, man, you and your kids and your snowboards. I don't understand it.
Damn millennials.
All right, so that's interesting. Any particular location for the Winter Olympics that would be your bucket list? If you could choose? Man. Louisville?
Yeah, the Winter Olympics there would be pretty shit. I mean, in the U.S., I think you just got to go to Aspen or to Salt Lake, but outside the U.S., I guess probably just if they had it in the Swiss Alps, that would be pretty cool to see. So one of the few places I haven't been.
Denver had the Olympics in the 70s, I believe, or 80s, and they financially couldn't support it. So they had to they won the bid, and they had to turn it down.
I was scratching my head thinking of when there was a Denver Olympics.
No,
okay, that's what I was going to ask.
So they won the bid, they turned it down, and the Olympic Committee have said if Denver ever entered for the Winter Olympics, they would automatically win it. The IOC have come out and said that's the case because they technically have already won the bid, so they wouldn't have to bid again. So there's been a lot.
Where'd it go that year?
What'd you say?
Where'd it go that year?
I'm not sure, but there's a lot of rumblings now that they're going to do a bid in the next couple years, or like the next couple years when it comes to Olympic bids. So we'll see what happens. But it looks like it would be like an Aspen, Vail, Beaver Creek hosted event. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting.
That was 1976. I guess that they ended up going to Innsbruck instead.
Yeah.
Little factoid, I never knew that.
Yep, fun facts, Mike. Fun facts. So, Mike, what would be your sporting event?
Well, if it's a sporting event, then I'd have to say watching the Washington Capitals lift the Stanley Cup. I mean, they're in NHL hockey.
Could be this year.
It could be this year, except it won't be.
It's supposed to have been that year the last 5 years, hasn't it?
Well, that's the point. There's no real comparison in like world football, for instance, to the Washington Capitals because there's generally no playoffs. But in the last 10, 20 years, they've been relatively dominant in the regular season, just rolling through the season, and then just perennial playoff bottlers. I mean, this is the 43rd season for the Washington Capitals, and they've never won a game in the Stanley Cup Finals. In fact, they only went there once about 20 years ago. I was there for it, and they didn't win a single game. So yeah, that could be happening in June, but most likely won't. And I didn't know this was going to be a sporting event, so I have a kind of a sports bucket list thing that isn't a sporting event necessarily, but and of course with my wife's permission, it would be a something that consists of Alex Morgan, a bottle of Nutella, and some whipped cream.
Oh God!
We're gonna open a crepe stand together, dude. I mean, what do you? The hell are you?
At Orlando Pride games or at Lyon games?
You guys are perverts. I want to open a crepe stand, but yeah. So those would be my bucket list situations. Andy, I shudder to hear what yours is.
You know, Mike, following along the NHL lines, I just like to see the Avalanche win a game. That would just be ideal for me
you'd be happy if they won one, or you want to physically see it.
I have season tickets and I've yet to see them win this season. I really thought it was coming on Wednesday night. We had a 2-goal lead going into the third, and we let the other team score 5 goals. So
5-2. That's interesting. And who owns that team?
That's owned by Kroenke. It's great. Oh. It's great. And then I was thinking about it, and I'd love to see England win a World Cup. And then I was like, that's just shooting way too high. I'd love to see them reach the semifinals. That would be great too.
Yeah, I think Namibia will win the World Cup before either England or U.S. do.
Yeah, probably. So yeah, those are mine. So cool. I do hope the Caps win for your sake, Mike.
Yeah, because the window is definitely closing, and we're going to be a mid-table team in a few years. So if we don't win it now, it's just about over. But so no game this week to catch up on, which is always a pleasure.
No game this week, but we do have some good Arsenal topics, which is nice. And I'm going to start off with one that happened midweek last week, and it was the Podolski send-off. I don't know if this was something planned by the German team or if he went to the German team and said, hey, let's do a testimonial type of send-off for me, but
that's awfully like, hey, I have an idea. I have a great idea. Let's do all this stuff for me.
Because Philip Lahm didn't get one, so I don't know why Podolski would. Because
Mertesacker didn't get one.
But did you boys see the game?
No, I saw the highlights. That's
okay.
it.
So, I mean, the match itself was, 0-0 until Podolski decided to send himself off in the greatest fucking fashion possible with a nice left-footed upper 90 screamer. For me,
that was upper one. That wasn't upper 90. I mean, whatever the smallest possible area that you could get it into the corner was, that's what it was.
Oh, it was a typical Podolski, just like left-footed hammer shot. It was fucking awesome. Absolutely awesome. But for me, I kind of walked away from it thinking, all right, he only played 60 times for Arsenal, but it was the way he carried himself when he was with our squad. He just dove in headfirst. He was just on Twitter, bantering with the fans, giving Tottenham shit, super proud to be in the Arsenal shirt. I think even when he won the World Cup, he made sure that he got pictures with the other boys that were in the Arsenal team. So just everything that he did to carry himself while he was here was tremendous. And I look at the current squad, and I think how different it would be if we maybe had 4 or 5 players that just played with that type of passion, or at least exuded the passion for the current team he's playing on. So,
I mean, you got him taking pictures of his teammates winning the World Cup and making it about Arsenal, and you got Alexis taking pictures of him with Adam and fucking Humber, making it about dogs. Enough said. But I mean, he's a great team guy. I'm actually surprised by how much Podolski love from Arsenal fans on the internet this week. It just kind of made it clear that even though his play on the field for us was kind of limited at times, you could tell he was just starting to get past it from a quality standpoint, but still those moments of brilliance. If I remember correctly, right after he signed, which was right when we were going through this whole Robin Van Persie garbage, he did some Instagram video or something where he was taking a cab all around London, getting to know the city and popping his face out in public and just having a good time. And I fell in love with him all over again then. But rare Arsenal, near legend, I'd say, but more for his off-pitch qualities than on the field.
Absolutely.
You a Podolski fan, Michael?
Yeah, actually, that's what I was about to say. Is you brought up the cab thing, and that was the first thing I thought of was when he first got here. And it's funny because
I did the same thing when I got here yesterday, and no one cared.
But I think, you hear so much right now because we don't have the players who, at least on social media, they're not, just Arsenal everything. It's like, oh, we want to bring this player back, or why doesn't Arsenal bring this player back, and, director of football or whatever. They just need to make Podolski a lifelong ambassador, because that guy will go around the world just like Freddie Ljungberg is, whether he's in Australia or whatever, and just send that guy to the United States just being the Arsenal man, and he's going to post some great stuff. And everybody knows Arsenal internet and Arsenal Twitter is the greatest, so why don't you just let Podolski buy in and be the coordinator for it?
Why not?
I think that's a great idea because, speaking of Ljungberg, anyone who was in, and I know you were, Andy, I'm not sure if you were, Michael, but anyone who was in California for the trip this summer, there were signs of and appearances by Ljungberg place, and he was affable. He was mixing in with the crowd and just really kind of tying together the glory days with the present, and a really, really good ambassador. That's the perfect word for it. But as good as Freddie Ljungberg was, people would go nuts over Podolski in that
exactly
in that same role.
Yeah, I mean, we need someone in a role like that. I think Perez would be a great director of football because he would interact with the fans a little bit more.
I thought you meant Lucas Perez.
So did I.
I'm like, director of football. He's got 15 minutes on the pitch with us so far.
He needs to do something. He's being paid.
People need to say Perez because when you say Perez, I think of Lucas, which is pathetic. But sorry.
So there is some buzz right now today, more specifically, that Ozil is a lot closer to signing a contract than he was last week, I guess, which for me kind of highlights that Arsene will be returning. But if we don't sign Ozil in the next couple of weeks, do we really think we're going to be able to hold on to both Sanchez and Ozil in the summer? And I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of the whole thing because it's been just battered to death, but he just recently suggested that if there's a stalemate between parties, they've offered a contract and there just is no agreement right now. He wants to leave it to the summer. Is that
so? It's about money for him.
It's about money for both players.
It seems to be about more than money for Sanchez.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But do you think we're?
And I mean Alexis Sanchez, not Arangues Sanchez Vicario, just to make it clear.
Are we going to sign? Do you think it's better waiting till the summer, or do you think that just highlights the problems we have? That hey, we're probably not going to make Champions League. We're not going to win a trophy, etc.
Michael, what do you think? What do you think, Mike? Michael, sorry.
I think. Well. When it's Ozil and Sanchez, I think, and I could be in the minority here, I just think Ozil needs Arsenal more than, like Sanchez, the way he plays and everything, he could probably go anywhere and people are going to be like, well, regardless, he's going to get 20 and 30 goals. But Ozil's got the utmost freedom to play the way he plays with Arsene Wenger, and I think he knows that. So if he were to go somewhere else or ask for a transfer, my thought process is, I'm not saying his options are limited because he's Mesut Ozil, but they're not as world-renowned as everyone thinks they're going to be. And that's where I think he needs Arsenal just as much as Arsenal's like, hey, you need to sign this contract and stay with us. I think the Sanchez situation is a bit different, though.
That's the problem.
Yeah, and so here's the quote. I don't know if you boys have seen this, but I'll read it. It's an interview with a German newspaper after the match with Germany yesterday, and Ozil said, "Do you think Arsene tells the journalists about my future before he tells me? I know him differently. I have a contract until 2018 in London, and I feel very comfortable there. We will talk and make a decision soon. My dream is to win the Champions League. Why not with Arsenal? Of course, we are having a difficult time, and we're not as satisfied with sixth place. I am convinced, however, that we will catch up again soon. Let's see what the future holds." So a pretty positive comment from Ozil.
I hadn't heard that because the news comes out about 5 hours later here than it does.
Well, that was on Sky Sports this morning. But would Arsene just come out, Mike, and say Sanchez is leaving in the summer in March? Would he come out and say that, or do you think he's going to hold hope that he can re-sign him?
Would he say that now?
Like if he
Arsene?
Yeah.
Wenger?
Yeah.
No, of course not. Arsene doesn't say anything about the future until the future's in our past. I mean, he wouldn't come out and say that. He'll say, "I know whether Alexis is leaving or not, and I'll tell you when it's good and when I'm good and ready." That's what he would say.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, yeah, he's not going to say anything about it. He's going to keep Alexis wondering about it actually, and that's the concern is that Alexis is going to want to know whether we're building and reinforcing and making an effort to win. And we can't build and reinforce and make an effort to win if we don't know, or at least if the world doesn't know who the next manager is going to be, whether it's Arsene or somebody else. And that's the problem with this whole delay. And I won't spend 20 minutes talking about it, but this whole delay in coming out and saying whether he's staying or not is seemingly just keeping everything on hold. And meanwhile, you see all the other teams starting to line up their summer transfer prospects and start tapping them up already and all of that. And no one's even thinking about Arsenal at this point because of our uncertainty.
Well, there has been press inklings the past week of a war chest. I mean, we're the luckiest fans in the world that this war chest keeps getting pulled out around the April window, and then we never use it.
And the war chest isn't even it's not even a war chest anymore. It's like I had a war chest to go to Leicester Square today, and all it got me was beef and oyster sauce. So I mean, it's like, what is a war chest these days anyway? We talk about 100 million war chest, and all of a sudden now we find out that Chelsea's about to ramp up a 200 million war chest because they don't want to lose Hazard to Real Madrid. So war chest, schmore chest, as far as I'm concerned.
True. Did you see the statue that Alexis got this weekend?
I did. It looked like it was built by a 10-year-old.
Was it a dog?
No, it's him.
Was it made by a dog?
It's like
you need Google search this.
Yeah, it's him. You know what was really weird to me though, Michael, was they put all the clubs he's played for, and the Arsenal crest just looks like it was made in like a day. I mean, the thing is fucking huge. But it's embarrassing.
I'm about to find this thing online.
You should.
You're going to hear the natural reaction of the statue when I get to it. Let's go on, though.
Yeah. So, Michael, I'm going to go to you with this one. So, Giroud and Koscielny came out this week saying they both believe the Arsenal players want Arsene to stay. My question to you is that because they respect him, or is it because they feel like they don't have to perform under him? There's no fire lit beneath their asses that says, hey, you have to go out and win these games, because the crew of these players aren't really showing in the performance that they're playing for this manager because they love and respect him. So what are your feelings on these players coming out saying they want him to stay?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because, initially you want to say, well, it's because he brought them here. They love him, they respect him. And I mean, I do think any person that, plays for Arsene Wenger, whether it goes poorly or not, or it goes, as great as could be, I think they do respect him. But in the situation we're in and how we're playing, and I mean, when's the last time Arsene Wenger really dropped somebody for a bad performance? I mean, because he's pretty much the king of, well, you played bad this week, let me give you another chance to make it up, and then they just play worse. And I do think even with Koscielny and Giroud being French and probably having even more of a connection to him because they both came from the lower ends of the French league, it's just, I mean, I think part of them is just comfortable with him. And sometimes you can get too comfortable with the manager, especially in modern football. And then it's like, of course we want him to stay. He's Arsene Wenger. But then it's like, if they play poorly, they continue to get to play, and no one gets, they don't get put to the bench. Well, I mean, Giroud maybe, but Koscielny's not going to get put to the bench even if he plays terribly.
Right.
So there's just a lot of comfortability. Maybe that's because we need somebody who's either going to replace Arsene Wenger, or it's going to be somebody who's going to push the status quo underneath Arsene Wenger as his second in command. But we know that'll never happen. So.
No, and to answer your question, I think Coughlin would probably be the player that he recently dropped, but it took him, 15 games for him to actually...
AKA 14 games longer than any other manager would have
Absolutely,
taken.
Right? So, Mike...
But I think it goes through the whole squad over the last few years. I mean, we've seen some really poor performances from pretty much almost every single player that we've had in the past 5 years, and he'll just roll the same lineup out there. Yeah.
By the way, I just saw the statue. That is embarrassing. That thing is going to melt the first time it rains in Chile. I mean, it's awful.
I think it's made of various cheeses.
It does look like it. Oh man, the Koscielny, the player respect. It's a combination of respect for the man and for what he's done. It's a combination of not wanting to look like a douchebag. Because I mean, at what point is there to say you don't care? Or you don't respect him, or you want him gone. I mean, people aren't going to say that, especially players of his right now. And, and like Michael was saying, and a lot of people have been saying that they like him because he's a player's manager, and he's kind of gotten past the point to using tactics to rile up his players that players may not like, but tend to respond to on the pitch, and they're comfortable.
Right.
And it's more important who hasn't come out and said it than who has, because the silence from those people speaks volumes.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Ozil returned to Germany yesterday, and just a quick question. He got a run out. How quickly will he be injured upon his return to London?
Oh, the flight home.
I saw him on the side. I saw him actually on the side of the street puking. So he was setting the stage for another bout with the flu, I think. So I'm banking on not seeing Ozil or Sanchez in either of any of the three games that I'm here for, because Alexis will get his leg chopped off tomorrow in the Chile game, and Ozil will be a little under the weather, I'm sure. But what are you going to do about it? So speaking of Alexis, who in your eyes would win the almost MVP this season, the second best player for Arsenal this season? Because I think we can all agree that Alexis has probably been our best. But Michael, who would you say steps up to that second slot for you?
I mean, the first person that came to mind was Theo, because he's got 17 and 29, which that on paper looks great, but then you see the performance against West Brom and you think, no, it can't be Theo. So
see, this is the issue with any of these, because you think of somebody who at some point or other in the season could have been your co MVP, and then there's just such a downside as well to that same person. And
I absolutely believe, like, if we after the Swansea game at the beginning, if we challenge the FA on that red card, I think Xhaka's season looks a little bit different in the mind of everybody.
Yeah.
But I mean, I really don't know, because I'm right now I'm just gonna stick with Theo, because it's got to be him or Kashoni, I think, because who else has had a run of games that has done anything positive? I mean, people can look at Mustafi and say the 17 games unbeaten, but since his injury, I mean, holy shit, he has been bad. Like,
I mean, it's more about who hasn't been bad for the least amount or for the most amount of games than who's been good. And you've just basically answered the question exactly as how I hoped it would, because you're struggling. That kind of makes the point.
He's put it in 17 times, so I can't be like, well, there's at least 17 times you're doing all right for us.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
All right. So, Andy,
when you got the coffee maker.
Who's your AVP of the season? Your almost valuable player.
It is a tough question, and I want to echo Michael. I think Xhaka's season have been very different had that red card not come. But I just wanted to say, like, I feel like the Xhaka that we all expected in August is starting to kind of show himself now, and the way he's been playing the last couple matches, I think that's the player that we've just been hoping and wishing for. And it takes a while for German players to find their feet in the Premier League. And so I think going forward next season, we're going to have a fucking hell of a player on our hands. But to answer your question, I'm kind of in that.
You gonna do it?
I'm in the Chambo camp, man, and the reason why is it's not because of the consistency. It's because he's played in every other position that he's been asked, and he's at least had multiple matches where he's played well in those positions, right? And that's all you can ask of a player. We went down with injuries in central midfield. We threw him in there, and we were all sitting back thinking, oh, he's actually done really well. You know, and the next match he's thrown out on the right wing. And again, he's played well. So not statistically what we want from him, but I just think from a player who's put his head down and just kind of taken the season by the horns and said, let's do it. He's stayed healthy. I'm gonna go with the Ox.
Nice. That's a good shout. That's a good shout. Podcast favorite. Podcast favorite, Ox. For me, again, it's the except for situation. I mean, for the first 3 months of the season, I would have gone Hector Bellerin, and then he hurt his ankle against Spuds in the derby in November, and has not been the same since. I mean, people are saying maybe he isn't as good as we thought he was. Maybe he's not as fit as he used to be, and given the love I have for Hector, which is being put to the test with all these Barcelona rumors, but given that, I'd like to think that he's just not fit, and we'll see the old Hector again maybe next season after a break. You got Theo pre-coffee machine was on fire, not so much lately. Eddie Nketiah, if you know who that is, might be Arsenal's best consistent player this season in the youth team, unfortunately. But he's got like 94 goals in like 6 games or some crazy shit like that.
He's been scoring a lot of goals.
Yeah, he's been scoring a lot of goals. And then he was loaned to like a second division, like a Gideon Zelalem type of team. Or no, but was it maybe in Belgium or in Netherlands and hasn't been heard from since. But
I think the Netherlands, right.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a combination of all those guys. It's like Hector Walcott holding Rob or somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I don't really have a good answer for that, which is why I was interested in yours. But
Rob might have the most consistent performances for the 5 times he's played all season.
Yeah, I mean, we're not basing that on the. I mean, other than the first game against Liverpool where he was just in over his head. Every time he's come in against 4th division opponents, he's been good. So.
Well, and the crazy thing about that is you ask that question, right? And the instant answer we should all be saying is Ozil. Because of just his I mean, he's a great player, World Cup winner, and there shouldn't be a question about that. And that's what's sad about this season is flu and injuries aside, we should instantly thank Ozil because of just the stature that he has within our club.
3 seasons ago, you would have expected to say Ozil, Ramsey, Cazorla, and just it's gone to shit.
And speaking about Rob Holding, so one of the things that's great about sending these players out on loan, and I feel like he should have been sent out on loan, like Chambers is doing well at Middlesbrough, but look at Michael Keane, who is playing for Burnley and started twice for England this week.
Yep.
And
he did well yesterday.
He did very well in both matches. And I mean, he's a young kid. He'll more than likely get signed for City or United for $50 million this summer. But we should be sending Holding out on loan. I mean, I know we've got to worry about.
Didn't we send him to Bolton last year?
No, we bought him from Bolton.
I know, but
but it's just like
kind of like a loan.
But no, absolutely. But send him back. Send him somewhere. Give him. He could probably go to Burnley and fight for that first team spot. But it's just so critical that we get some of these young guys out because I fear that the Rob Holdings and Chambers will be great for other teams. They're just not going to be great for us.
Well, that's a realistic outcome given.
I mean, I think Holding definitely goes out on a Premier League loan next year.
Yes.
I think this year he kept him because it's like, I just bought you. Chambers has been here for a couple of years. I'll send him out on loan to get experience. I know they both play in the U21 setup, but I think Rob might be a bit younger. And so I think it was like, let me keep a year with you. Let me coach you. Let me manage you. Then I send you out on loan for that next year.
So then our backups in the center are going to be Gabriel and Chambers then next season?
And I guess Mertesacker because he signed a 1-year extension.
Yeah, barring any new coming in. But, I mean, Rob Holding is only 21, and this season he has learned how not to defend on a corner kick. Good for him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's picking up really good. It's like, whatever you just saw, don't do that. That's your training for the week. And speaking of Mertesacker, staying for another year, he's apparently been brought back at $70,000 a week to square up against fans who pretend to give him a handshake on the sideline. Was that not the best piece of video you've ever seen?
No, I wonder. Okay, was he joking about that, or was that legit?
No, I think he was pissed. I mean, you don't embarrass Per Mertesacker like that, and he was pissed. I mean, if that was. Let's say Vinnie Jones or Joey Barton or who's Eric Cantona. I mean, that kid in the crowd would have been meat. He would have been just absolute dust right now. But Per Mertesacker held himself back and just gave a little scary, goofy BFG stare at him. But I love that. I'm going to make that my screensaver.
Oh, it's fantastic. There was some kids at the Germany game yesterday who ran onto the pitch afterwards asking Ozil for his jersey, and I don't think he gave it to him because they ran onto the field.
Dicks, total dicks.
Respect the
Alexis
process.
played 90. Speaking of international games, because I love the segues. Alexis played 90 minutes for Chile on Thursday after having to come off in the second half a few days earlier because of a broken leg. And he was apparently grimacing and limping throughout, although you can't tell whether he's in pain or he's just disappointed at his teammates' performances or not. But They play again against Venezuela tomorrow. I mean, any chance that they'll sit him, or are they going to play him for like another 100 minutes out of the 90 minutes of that game?
Well, where are they at on their table?
They need to win.
They need to win. They're
on the outside looking in, which is surprising given how their form has been internationally. But
the frustrating thing about it is if Arsene had any balls, he would be reaching out to Chile saying he's not playing. But
Chile doesn't listen to no Arsene Wenger.
Well, they have to. They have to. But the problem is he wants to keep Sanchez happy, so he's not going to do that. So I guarantee Sanchez will come back and probably not feature against City because of that.
And he's so happy. Apparently, he threw another strop at the end of the Argentina game. I mean, walked off the field without clapping off the fans. His teammates were not thrilled with him. I mean, this guy is spiraling into like well beyond Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan kind of pathological competitor. I mean, what is going on with this guy?
He's turning more into like a Dennis Rodman, play well and then throw a fit at the end of the game. You know, it's
Rodman was not like that. Rodman was from all accounts was a good team guy, except for when he got the team in trouble with his antics.
Yeah.
He was out of control on the pitch. This guy is just like, I mean, who is possibly at the level of competition or competitiveness that this guy is to where he'd be happy? I mean, I don't know that it's out there.
Juventus, because they have no competition, so they just win all the time?
Maybe, but yeah. I mean, it's kind of disconcerting, but
no, it is. And at what point does it become a little bit obnoxious and over the top? Like, we get it, right?
A couple months ago.
Yeah.
Like, we get it. You're upset. You want change. But voice your opinion then, you know? And we know he did when he stormed out of training. But
he got to that point a couple months ago, I think.
Yeah. But no, totally.
He did it last year, too.
Yeah.
Last year there was a game he got subbed off, and he stormed down the tunnel and just left. He didn't even wait around for everyone.
He was seen walking down Hornsey Road in his full kit. Just walking, looking for somebody.
Just yelling.
Exactly. Just screaming and yelling with a police detail behind him. I mean, I don't know. This isn't going to end well. And by this, I don't mean his Arsenal career. I just mean like his life is just going to end like in a blaze of glory because he's getting so intense. He's just going to explode, I think. And
I think he's one player. I wouldn't be surprised. Although I think he has more options that people will take a flyer on him to go to a big team if he ends up playing in China or something like that. Because
could you imagine how upset he'd get at his teammates over there?
I mean, besides
he'll be throwing Ramirez through a wall.
I just can't see him. You know, he's almost getting to the point of how people were with Tevez when they couldn't handle him as a teammate, and then he went back home to Argentina, and then now he's the highest paid player in China. It's just people can only put up with so much for a year or two, and then they're like, no, we're sick of this guy. He's got to go. Yeah,
the way I looked at Tevez, though, was that he was quite a bit all about the money. I mean, the guy kept complaining he wanted to go home to Argentina, and then he went to China.
Yeah.
I mean, that first with a stop off in Italy first. I mean, Sanchez I don't think would go to China because I do think he wants to be at the top of the competition, and I do think a PSG, a Juventus, another top team. I mean, it's not a flyer with Alexis. It's a good bet. It's expensive. With Mesut Ozil, dripping back into our conversation before, he's on the trajectory down where he comes from Real Madrid, and I hate to call this a downward trajectory, but comes from Real Madrid, goes to Arsenal, underperforms essentially, and I mean, where is he going to go next other than Trabzonspor in Turkey? I mean, there's not another top team out there, which is why I agree with you that he'll probably end up re-signing for lack of other options. But
so speaking of re-signing, I just want to quickly chat. In 2018, these are the contracts that are going to expire. Okay,
we don't have long enough in our podcast to cover.
So I'm going to read them quickly, and then I'm going to ask you both a quick question. So we've got Ramsey, Sanchez, Ozil, Chamberlain, Wilshere, Szczesny, Cazorla, Gibbs, Mertesacker, Jenkinson, Campbell, Sonogo. So a lot of those players.
How many is that total?
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So the Carl Jenkinson, Sonogo probably aren't good enough to play on the team. But my question is, do we worry about this and say, what the hell are our board doing? Or do we look at this and say, okay, here's an opportunity to remove some dead weight, to bring in some change, as long as we replace these players with quality?
Well, I actually Arsblog posted a tweet literally about an hour before we went on air about all these contracts expiring, and was this a sign that Wenger knew he was leaving this summer and decided to just keep all these decisions for somebody else? Mm-hmm. And I actually tweeted back and said, respectfully, I disagree. I think he just I think it's poor planning, and he expected 2 or 3 seasons ago for us to just be so fucking competitive that all these guys would be lining up to sign new contracts at below market rates to stay on a winning team. And it's just, it was a gamble that just didn't pay off because, I'm not saying I wouldn't be happy if 5 or 6 or 7 of those guys found another team, and maybe if we could get some dollars or some pounds out of some teams for them before their contract expires, even better. But that's a lot of contracts to be expiring at one time.
Well, and the British kids that you see on that list, I mean, they all signed at the same time, right? I remember
British core.
Yeah, the British core. And so there's no surprise.
Seems like only 4 years ago that
right.
happened.
So there's no surprise they're all up at the same time, but that's a lot of players. And, I'm thinking yeah, Michael, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, please.
I was going to say, I think, so how were there 5 in the British core? It was Gibbs, Jenkinson, Ramsey, Wilshere, and Theo?
Yep. And then, no, not
Rainbow.
Theo, the Ox.
Oh, no.
Yeah, Theo's always on his own, he's his own British core.
Yeah. Well, out of those 5, I really do think he probably thought, okay, when he signed the British core, I think he's thinking, okay, when it comes to Ramsey and definitely Wilshere, 2 years into this British core, 3 years into this British core, they're going to be my out-and-out starters, so I'm just going to sign them to another contract. Well, Ramsey has the best year ever 2 years later, and Wilshere's yet to get a whole season since signing the British core thing. So I think his planning there was like, after I sign him this contract, this is the pre-qualifier for the real big contract in their prime years, and it hasn't happened.
Yeah, we're going to be, we were asked the question last week, what happens if all these players don't re-sign? And I said, we're going to have less players. But, I mean, it's going to be almost like an American football team where, they intentionally do this so that they have all this free space under the salary cap, which obviously doesn't exist in the Premier League. But, except we're not going to sign the 3 superstars to max out contracts because no one's going to want to come here. So fun days ahead.
Right.
Fun days ahead on Twitter as well. It continues to get toxic. People seem to think that the more vile and disgusting you get about Arsene Wenger, the more it will push him out. But I really don't think that that's the strategy people should be going on. I mean, I go on Twitter, which was my first mistake, and see a nice picture of a distinguished-looking elderly French gentleman who's managed Arsenal for the last 20 years, and it's accompanied by the caption, "Face of a cunt." I mean, seriously, people? I'm all for saying that it's time for him to go and time for him to change. And look, I'm caught up in that argument. I've committed myself to that. But I mean, seriously, that's shambolic. I mean, so the question to you is: should Twitter be canceled?
Yes.
I know that it would hurt our distribution of the podcast because that is one of our main distribution channels to let people know what's going on. But in general, if it stopped all the negativity, well, how would you feel about that, Michael?
I don't know if it should be canceled.
If you put the word Arsenal in a tweet, it automatically goes into a separate Twitter for miserable people.
Yeah, there needs to be a pop-up thing did you really mean to search Arsenal on Twitter? And then just be you have to click yes or no, and you're right. You agree to the content that'll pop up.
It's the thing that keeps you from drunk texting. You your 3 a.m. What's that called? I'm so out of practice. What's it called when you hit someone up on Twitter at 3 a.m. to see if they're around?
No idea.
Oh yeah, booty call. Yeah, booty call. This is how old I am. I forget what a booty call is called.
Yeah, it does need to be like that. It's if Arsenal, drop points one day, it's our Twitter needs to know. your team lost points today. Are you sure you want to search this in here? Just so you know how bad it's going to be.
But I mean, it's, and I got in a quick back and forth spat with one of these people, and and again, I just, against my better judgment, I get sucked into that sometimes on Facebook and Twitter, and just because it's just have your point, but just don't be a dick, don't be a miserable fucking exactly what you're calling other people. It's just it's ludicrous, but so just my 2 cents.
I agree with you. If they have a point, I think anyone's willing to listen to a point. You may not agree with it, but you're willing to listen. But when people can only offer you they suck, it's like, okay, that means nothing. You're literally just saying they suck, and you're offering no content. No, like, you're not backing it up. You're just saying they suck. It's like being like, well, Alexis Sanchez sucks. It's like, well, Alexis Sanchez, we all know, does not suck at soccer. He's actually very good at the game.
Yeah, and Arsene Wenger isn't a cunt. He just isn't doing the things that seemingly for most of us might help us get to another phase in our development and growth, and he's stubborn. He's maybe stayed a little bit too long, and yes, maybe the things that he's doing and the decisions he's making and not making might be hurting our team, but the man is not a cunt. I'm sorry.
Yes. And I cannot stand when someone is, it's just, you can't argue with an idiot, because you argue back with them, then you're the idiot. But it's just when all they offer is that they don't know what they're doing. They suck. It's like, you don't know what you're talking about.
I had the incredible experience of literally running into him on the streets of San Jose last summer. And, I jogged a bit. Yeah. If you look at my Twitter profile, not the pod one, but my individual one, there's a photo of me with Arsene Wenger. He stopped. He waited while I fumbled with my phone, and we took a selfie together. And he's actually smiling, which surprised me. But and I posted on Facebook about it. And I said, in this moment, I couldn't, and this was last summer before we, had any of the signings or anything, other than Xhaka. And I said, in this moment, I couldn't think about Lacazette or Benzema or anything like that. All I could say was thank you. And, for the picture, for the last 20 years, for everything. And I would just love some of these fucking people who are tweeting this shit on Twitter to just have Wenger walk up to them and say, is there anything you want to say to me? And how many of them would fucking say the same things that they tweeted? Bunch of pussies.
How many of them wouldn't ever be able to get a word out of their mouth? They just start stuttering.
I could barely. I mean, it was like 2 minutes of me trying to take a picture because my fingers were shaking and stuff. But anyway, I mean, the man deserves some respect. I guess that's the bottom point. But Twitter is a place for showing zero respect, and that's why I will continue to go on there.
I think that's a good point, though, because I mean, I don't want to get into the planes and everything, but I'm all for us getting a new manager, a director of football. But I never in my wildest dreams was like, you know what? I want Arsene Wenger to go out in the worst way possible.
Mm-hmm. Well, anybody wants him to. I just think that they don't see any other way. But it's just that isn't going to make him go quicker. And so what's the point? You're just making yourself look like a douche.
I was going with like the Twitter fans though, who are like, I mean, they're thriving in the sense of just with every loss, it's like they're like, yes, Arsene's struggling again, and it's like, do you want this to be bad?
Then they're not real fans if that's the case.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean. Like they're not, and you could be as angry or as I've been on the fence with Arsene for 5 or 6 years now, but never in my mind would I have thought, oh, I want us to win because it makes him look worse, or I'm going to go on and call him X, Y, and Z. And those people that do that, they just, they don't. We talked about it a little bit last week. You got to just stop and realize this is a game. This is a sport. Like this isn't.
And we get that you feel, that it's more than a game to you, fan. Yeah, I mean, we know that, but that doesn't, it's not. But it's as not important as life or death.
Right. It's not. I mean, you got to put things into perspective, and yeah, you know what? Arsenal was my first ever love, and my wife joked about that at our wedding. She even got me an Arsenal wedding cake because of that. But at the end of the day, it's like it is just a game, and we all need to calm down. But Mike, let's go to listener questions.
Yeah, we've got just a couple listener questions today, so we'll be quick with that, and then we'll move on to a topic that I'm very happy with, which is picks of the week. First listener question from @ArsenalJF. Can you please bring back the arson game? It's been months, and I'm about to give up on the podcast if it doesn't return. Thank you in advance.
Who in the
Andy,
fuck is JF?
Andy, what do you think?
That's
It's from Arsenal JF. He's a huge Arsenal fan.
I'm trying to figure out who this person is because no one has ever requested that this game come back.
Michael, I know you're a relatively new listener, but are you familiar with the arson game?
No, I need it explained, please.
Okay. Yeah, well, in the first 10 or so episodes, we did it about 5 or 6 times. In other words, when no one was listening to us. It's a game where Arsene Wenger takes over the podcast in the voice of me doing a terrible impression of Arsene Wenger. And we go through 3 quotes from the week, and 2 of them are real quotes read in true Arsene Wenger voice, and one of them is a completely fake quote. And we have the guest and the other host, Andy, need guess which one is the fake quote. Andy, I believe, got 1 correct out of about 6 or 7 of them and hated the game and banished it from the podcast. But clearly our listeners are wanting it back and wanting it back. So maybe, Andy, in the next few weeks, we'll see a return.
You got to give the listeners what they want.
Mike, it's weird because my fingers work, and I just went to Twitter and found out that was your fucking son. So, next question.
I never claimed it was not a family member that tweeted.
I would like to say hi, Jake, but it's not happening.
My son, who, by the way, I want to give a shout out. He scored the game-winning penalty kick in a shootout to win their championship game yesterday in their tournament, and I got to watch it on FaceTime.
Nice.
See him peeling away from the goal with his team jumping on top of him. So proud moment. I'm sorry that I missed it, but he's a stud, and he loves the Arsenal game.
You saw it on FaceTime.
I wasn't there is what I'm saying. I saw it on FaceTime.
That's what happens when you live the Playboy lifestyle that you do, Mike, and you're just gallivanting around London.
Well, someone's got to do it.
And then negotiate Alexis and Ozil's contracts.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've got big meetings tonight. From @Synergy Mike is our second question. 6 wins and a tie, culminating in Southampton 5-0 on the day you became a citizen, Andy. Since then, we've beaten 3 non-league teams, Sutton, Lincoln, and Hull, and lost the other 6 games we've played, being outscored in those 6 losses by 21-6. Andy, can you do us all a favor and either forfeit your citizenship or move back home?
I'll happily do both.
That's from @Synergy Mike.
So this is from you personally.
We didn't really have much time to solicit user questions this week, so this is what we got. That's an interesting stat, though, huh?
You know, it's another interesting stat, and I wish I would have saved it. I don't know if you boys saw it, but I think the Sun ran a piece, and out of the last 15 matches we've played, we've been outrun by the opposing team. Is that bad?
Oh, I saw this.
Is that bad, or is that just we're so good with the ball we don't have to run? Because that was my first thought. I'm like, well, we put the ball around so much, the other team are chasing it, right? But is that a bad statistic for us, or is it something we shouldn't worry about? Because I'd like to see what the last 10 years have been like against.
In my personal life, I'm sorry, Michael. In my personal life, I can tell you that my credo is running doesn't matter. So I'm not sure that that's that big of a deal. But, Michael, you probably have a more reasoned response to that.
Well, I was going to say I think it's a small sample size because maybe if you looked at it from the whole season and you could look at it from games we've won versus games we lost, and if the majority of the time in games we've won we've outran the opponent, then it probably holds some weight. But if in the majority of games we've won this season we've ran less, then it would go to your point, Andy, that the other teams are chasing the ball. So I'm a big believer in any sport, you can pretty much show stats to prove your point any way you want to prove your point, to be good or bad. So I don't really know how much weight it has. But I did see what I saw of that article was someone was showing it and saying, oh, the players are coming out supporting Arsene Wenger and saying, oh, it's not acceptable the way we've been playing, or we need to work harder for the boss. And it's like, yeah, you've really been working harder by getting outran by these other teams. So, but in a game, I don't know if it showed the non-league games or not, but if Lincoln City ran more than us, well, obviously that wouldn't matter because we won 5-0.
Right.
So I don't know. I think you can stats are misleading a lot of the times because you can really just show what you want to show for your argument.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
That's a good point.
And speaking of Lincoln City, I will be seeing them play tomorrow night at Gander Green Lane of Sutton, hosted by our friends at Gandermonium, who we had on the podcast along with Wayne Shaw right before the Sutton game a couple months ago. But I'm going to see how the non-league life is tomorrow night, along with my friend Jeff Lancaster, who is an Arsenal friend to just about all Americans who come over here. So I want to give him a shout out as well. But non-league football is alive and well, and I'm going to check it out tomorrow. And I'm rooting for Sutton, by the way. Lincoln can go fuck off. That dude, what is it, Matt Reed or whatever his name is? It looks like it was RHEAD.
Yeah.
Like with an R.
Reed.
Yeah. Every time he goes down for a 5-minute injury rest, I'm going to go get a beer. So I actually appreciate him.
No, you
very
have to
much.
get high with Wayne Shaw.
Well, he's not there anymore, but my plan is to do that sometime this week as well. Although I did notice on his Twitter feed just in the last week or so, he now has representation, which he probably obtained so that he could keep us away from him. But I have been in contact with Wayne actually, and at some point in the next 2 weeks, I'm hoping to hook up with him and hopefully get some content for the podcast so we can see how he's been since then. But anyway, picks of the week. Things are getting close, Andy. Very, very close. 73 for Andy, 71 for me, and our guest spot is down in the relegation zone at 67. So, Michael, you have some work to do. Mm-hmm. This could be the week it happens, Andy, and there's no more excuses.
They could be
no more
the
lawsuits. Week. No more lawsuits.
No.
So we'll start with the shit game of the week: Stoke at Leicester. And because I'm obligated to go first, which you'll switch up as soon as I take the lead again, I'll go 3-0 Leicester. Leicester's not only out of the relegation zone, but at this point I'm going to actually tip them to finish ahead of Arsenal this season. So 3-0 Leicester. Andy.
I mean, they're only 9 spots behind.
9 spots or 9 points?
9 spots. They're in 15th place.
All right. Well, then, yeah, it could be done. I didn't say we're going to finish 16th. I just said that they're going to finish ahead of us. Andy.
I'm going to go 3-0 Leicester.
Dick. This is the name of this podcast is Andy Turns Into a Dick. Okay. All right, Michael.
I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw. Leicester's on a hot streak, but I think Stoke's solid enough, so I'll go with the 2-2 draw.
Okay, excellent.
Coming off the international break.
And we have Bournemouth at Southampton, a South Coast derby, which I will be in attendance at.
Nice.
Sitting in the Southampton end, but rooting for Jack to get on the pitch. I'll do that quietly, though. I'm going to go with what I hope will happen, 5-4 Southampton. Most exciting game for neutrals in many a year. So, Andy, now we'll see what you're really up to.
I mean, I thought the match would be 5-4. That's the crazy thing about it, Mike.
What is your pick?
5-4 Southampton.
Dick. Michael, you see what's going on here, don't you?
Yes. So I'm gonna pick opposite. I'm gonna go. Let's go 2-1 to Bournemouth.
All right. See what I have to deal with on a regular basis here. Andy has such a short fuse. I'm telling you.
Hey.
Everton at Liverpool, just your classic Merseyside derby. Andy, what would you pick here?
You're picking first. You know the rules.
Sorry, thought I could slip that by you. I'm going to go 3-1 Liverpool. Everton will suffer from the loss of Seamus Coleman, and they will also suffer from the gain of Aaron Lennon on their team. So it'll be 3-1 to Liverpool. Douchebag, what do you have?
I mean, it's just so mean. I'm going to go 2-0 Liverpool.
So I have a chance to pick up a point there if I get the score exactly.
Yeah, you have a chance.
Okay. So you're saying there's a chance. All right, 2-0 Liverpool. Michael?
I'm going 3-1 Liverpool.
Okay. I'll give you a pass on that one.
which it doesn't help Arsenal at all. It'd probably be better if Everton would win. But
Well, no, none of other teams' results rarely ever help Arsenal. West Brom at Man United. 4 years ago, these teams played to a 5-5 draw on the final day of the season. I think it might have been Fergie's final game in charge. So based on that, I'll go with 3-1 United.
Is Bin Laden still suspended?
Is who? Bin Laden?
No, it's a Latin.
Oh. Is he still suspended? Yes. It was 3 games, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think about that. Okay, well, 3-1 United. Andy, with that additional information, and my 3-1 pick is completely based on the fact that they played to a 5-5 draw. Andy, keeping in mind that they have no one that can score goals.
Come off a big victory.
Yeah. I'm going to go 1-0 United.
Goal from United player?
Probably Mkhitaryan from 5 yards offside.
With which body part?
With his
Too
dick.
true.
I knew that. Okay, and Michael, what do you think?
I'm gonna hope that West Brom wasn't a fluke last week and that they can take down United and continue their hot streak. So they're gonna get beat by a former United player, and Johnny Evans will score the winner, 2-1.
Wow, nice.
All right, we have somebody who's picking based on actual facts and feelings, rather than putting 11 men behind the ball as you are doing, Andy. Man City at Arsenal. It's a podcast sigh. It's going to be 2-1 City, just like last time.
Ooh, I was going to go 2-0 City. I was!
And now what are you going to go with?
2-0 City.
Okay. And Michael, what do you think?
What'd you say? We gave up 21 goals in the last how many games?
Well, in the last 6 losses. That doesn't include our non-league games against Hull and the like. But Andy decided to give up his citizenship, though, so we're going to be okay. He's got a week to do it.
Let's go 2-2 draw. And I'd call that a win for Arsenal at that point. So.
Well, I've been to Emirates probably. Well, Emirates and a couple of away games in the last few years, maybe about 7 or 8 times. Never lost a game, so I can see the 2-2 draw happening because I'm not going to go there and see a loss. I mean, that's just not going to happen.
Hey, I lucked out when I went this year. I saw him play Bournemouth, so it was a 3-1 win. So I was happy. Nice. That's before we went to shit, though.
Yeah, sweet. Well, speaking of City, it is our next game on Sunday. I'm actually, it's sad to say, but I'm more intrigued by surveying the mood and the ambience around the pubs and the streets, before and after the game than the game itself. I mean, just, from America, watching from afar all this stuff with the planes and the protests and the mood, you get the sense that when you're over there, it's more kind of an outlier, and in the stadium itself, it's still a supportive, positive atmosphere, and I hope that that's the case. But it will be interesting just kind of being around the area for that day, and even more interesting made by the fact that this weekend is Rocastle Day, the anniversary of his death, and this game is always one where people kind of put their differences aside and just and celebrate the great man himself. So I'm hoping it will be a positive atmosphere next week. But
where are you headed before the match?
Well, I can't tell. If I tell the whole world where I'm going before the match, it's going to be a riot. I mean, you're going to have thousands and thousands of people showing up just for me. No, I'm going to some pubs.
I didn't know if you were going 12 pins or.
No, I'll probably be in the Highbury area, Supporters Club pub right outside of Arsenal or the Gooners or something like that. But it'll be interesting to say the least. I'm looking forward to it though. And Andy, this country thing, I've been talking about this for a long time about how, we're just waiting to see who our 69th country was going to be.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That they were going to be the sexiest country ever. We did it. We've gotten to 69.
Yeah, who is it? Who is it?
Well, first I got to tell you who 68 is. And we'd like to welcome to the pod Croatia.
What up, Croatia?
Yeah, do we think that our new listener is Eduardo or Davor Suker?
Suker.
I think so. Who would you think that our Croatian listener is, Michael? Put you on the spot.
Eduardo, without a doubt.
Nice. I mean, there's nothing better to do that while you're rehabbing from a broken leg than listen to our podcast. So, and if you could have chosen a country for number 69, Andy, what country would you have wanted to be our sexiest new country? What was that?
That was my.
Did you just finish?
No, I usually cry at the end.
I would have laughed, except I had a whole beer in my mouth.
I bet that's what you had in your mouth. 69th
Arsenal Family Podcast.
I'm going to say it's Canada.
We have Canada already.
Do we?
Yes, of course. I mean, at the very least, we had Mario from the sadly departed Full 90. We just want to give them a shout out, by the way. They're folding up their tent after a couple years of excellent podcasts. So I'm sure we'll have AJ and Mario on our podcast at some point in the future. But I would have gone for Orgasmistan, which is this little-known principality nestled in a mountain range between San Marino and Liechtenstein. But
sounds lovely.
Turns out that late last night, after I went to bed, we had 3 downloads from country number 69, which I figured because I woke up this morning feeling a little tingly, checked the thing, and yes, it had happened. We got to do a pod from this place, and I want to thank all the people that made it possible. So here's my call out. When they gave up a last-minute goal in the 2010 World Cup to Landon Donovan of the USA to send us through to the elimination phase, I knew there was something special about this country. Home to famous footballers like Sofiane Feghouli, Yassin Brahimi, Islam Slimani, Majid Bouguera, who I always thought was a character in the Jungle Book, and, of course, Riyad Mahrez. Home to the parents of such stellar headbutting footballers as the great Zinedine Zidane and the cunt Samir Nasri. Thank you to Algeria, our 69th country.
Wow.
Algeria in the house.
Nice.
Onwards and upwards in our world domination tour.
There it is.
There it is. We're on our way to 100 now. So, Michael, tell us how we can find you and the Short Fuse online. I'm sure we'll all want to see the great content that you guys are putting out, and how can we stay plugged into the Short Fuse?
Well, if you go to our website, SB Nation, or actually theshortfuse.sbnation.com, or if you go to SB Nation, you can find the blog there. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat,
podcast.
The Short Fuse, and we will be having the podcast on the website, and we'll be putting you guys out on everything once this is up. I don't know how quickly the turnaround is for you guys publishing this.
3 weeks.
3 weeks, okay.
We're just saving these all for when I get home.
Hey, that's fine. So we will get it up there. It'll be there will be a link. We'll do our best to have it playable on the website too. And then you can find me at mchrisman13 on Twitter. Mostly U.S. soccer and Arsenal related, probably mixed in with a few Louisville views of different things going on in the city, but I keep it mostly United States soccer and Arsenal. So, feel free to follow that. And, we're looking forward to this. We're glad you guys had us on, and we'll definitely have it pinned onto the website so that everybody can find it.
Sweet. Exciting things to come for Gooners in the USA and the Short Fuse. I appreciate your guesting on our pod today. And, Andy, anything else for you for this week?
No, I'm looking forward to this partnership with the Short Fuse, and let's enjoy London, Mike. Stay out of trouble. Enjoy all the matches you're going to. Give Joey a nice hug for me when you see him.
Oh, yes, Joey Murphy will be entering my tender arms on Friday afternoon. I can't wait.
I'm sure that's not all he'll be entering. All right, and on that note,
on you, Gooners.
Join in the banter through our social media outlets. You can like us on Facebook at Gooners in USA. Follow us on Twitter at Gooners in USA. Send us an email at gooners@goonersinusa.com. Check out our website, which is www.goonersinusa.com. You can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, and please send us questions, comments, suggestions, or anything you'd like addressed on the pod. Come on, you Gooners.